What if I told you that one of the world's largest cloud platforms started as a project with the codename Red Dog, and that Microsoft was actually late to the cloud computing party, but somehow managed to become the second largest cloud provider in the world? Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating history of Microsoft Azure, from its humble beginnings in 2008 to becoming the AI-powered cloud giant it is today. Whether you're a developer, IT professional, or just curious about technology, this story has twists, strategic pivots, and billion-dollar decisions that changed the entire tech industry. So grab your coffee, hit that subscribe button, and let's explore how Microsoft went from cloud computing underdog to industry leader. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a comprehensive journey through the history of Microsoft Azure Cloud. We'll cover everything from Project Red Dog in 2008 to Azure's current position as a global AI powerhouse in 2025. Make sure to stick around until the end because I'll share some incredible statistics about Azure's current reach that might surprise you. And if you find this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more tech history content. Before we dive into the history, let's quickly understand what Microsoft Azure is today. This will help us appreciate just how far it's come. Microsoft Azure is currently a massive cloud computing platform offering over 600 different services. Think about that for a second, 600 services. These cover everything from basic computing and storage to advanced artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities. Azure operates in more than 60 regions worldwide, making it the cloud provider with the most global coverage. It serves millions of customers across 190 countries, which is pretty much everywhere on Earth. Most importantly, Azure holds the number 2 position in the global cloud market, right behind Amazon Web Services. This is remarkable considering where we're about to see it started from. But how did Microsoft get here? Well, the story begins in 2008, and trust me, it wasn't a smooth ride. Our story begins on October 28, 2008, at Microsoft's Professional Developers Conference. This is where Microsoft first announced their entry into cloud computing with a project that had the internal codename Project Red Dog. Now, here's the thing, Microsoft was actually late to this party. Amazon had already launched AWS in 2006 and was gaining serious momentum. Google had just launched their app engine earlier in 2008. Microsoft was essentially playing catch-up in a market that was exploding with potential. But Microsoft had a vision. They wanted to create what they called a cloud computing operating system, specifically designed for businesses and developers. The big selling point? Existing applications wouldn't need additional coding to run on their platform. Think about the pressure Microsoft was under at this moment. They were a software giant, but suddenly everyone was talking about the cloud. Companies were starting to move away from buying and maintaining their own servers. If Microsoft missed this wave, they could become irrelevant in the new computing era. Project Red Dog was their answer, their bet on the future of computing. But announcing a project and actually delivering it are two very different things. Fast forward to February 1st, 2010. This is when Microsoft officially launched Windows Azure as a commercial service. Notice the name, Windows Azure. This is important because it tells us exactly who Microsoft was targeting. Initially, Azure was primarily a platform as a service, or PaaS, designed mainly for .NET applications and Windows developers. If you were working in the Microsoft ecosystem using Visual Studio, .NET, SQL Server, then Azure was perfect for you. But if you were using anything else, well, you were pretty much out of luck. The core services were pretty basic by today's standards. Some compute instances, storage services, SQL databases, and messaging services. Microsoft was essentially saying, hey, take your existing Windows applications and run them in our cloud instead of your own data center. But here's where things got interesting. The market reception was, let's say, mixed. Critics were pretty harsh compared to what Amazon was offering with AWS. Many developers found Azure had a steep learning curve, and it was limited to Windows-based workloads. However, Microsoft did introduce something revolutionary, pay-as-you-go pricing. This meant businesses could start small and scale up without massive upfront investments. This pricing model would become standard across the entire cloud industry. Despite the criticism, Microsoft had officially entered the cloud wars. But they were clearly the underdog. June 2012 was a pivotal moment for Azure, and really for Microsoft as a company. This is when they made a crucial strategic decision that would change everything. Microsoft announced support for virtual machines, and here's the kicker, they supported both Windows and Linux. Let me repeat that. Microsoft, the Windows company, was now officially supporting Linux in their cloud platform. They also launched Azure websites, making it incredibly easy to host web applications, and introduced hybrid connectivity options like VPN and ExpressRoute. This meant businesses could connect their existing data centers directly to Azure. This was Microsoft's strategic shift from being purely a platform as a service to becoming a full infrastructure as a service provider. They were no longer just saying, bring your .NET apps. They were saying, bring whatever you're running, and we'll host it. This decision was massive. By embracing non-Microsoft technologies, they were essentially admitting that the future of cloud computing wasn't about vendor lock-in, it was about choice and flexibility. The impact was immediate. About 50% of Fortune 500 companies started seriously evaluating Azure as a viable alternative to AWS. Microsoft was no longer just the Windows cloud. They were becoming a legitimate multi-platform cloud provider. But the biggest changes were still to come. March 25, 2014. This is when Windows Azure officially became Microsoft Azure. Now, you might think this was just a simple name change, but it represented something much deeper. By dropping Windows from the name, Microsoft was making a clear statement. Azure wasn't just for Windows anymore. This rebranding reflected their new reality of supporting Linux, Java, Python, Node.js, and pretty much any technology stack you could think of. This period also saw the introduction of what Microsoft called second-generation services. Enhanced virtual machines, advanced networking capabilities, expanded storage options, and cross-platform development tools. But here's what's really interesting about this timing. This rebranding happened just 1 month after Satya Nadella became Microsoft's CEO. Nadella brought with him a cloud-first, mobile-first vision that would completely transform Microsoft's strategy. Under Nadella's leadership, Microsoft stopped trying to force everything through Windows and instead focused on meeting customers where they were. If they were using iPhones, great, here's Office for iOS. If they were running Linux servers, perfect, here's Azure support for Linux. This wasn't just a rebranding, it was a complete philosophical shift. Microsoft was evolving from a Windows company to a cloud-first company, and the market noticed. Azure was now positioned as a true multi-platform cloud provider, ready to compete head-to-head with AWS and Google Cloud. Between 2015 and 2017, the cloud wars really heated up, and Microsoft came out swinging with some strategic moves that would define the next decade. In 2015, Azure Active Directory became the enterprise standard for identity management. If you've ever logged into your work computer or accessed company applications, there's a good chance Azure AD was handling that authentication behind the scenes. 2016 brought us Azure Stack, Microsoft's answer to hybrid cloud computing. This was brilliant because it allowed companies to run Azure services in their own data centers. Businesses could get the Azure experience without moving everything to the cloud immediately. Then in 2017, Microsoft dropped a bombshell with Azure Cosmos DB, a globally distributed database that could automatically scale across regions. This was Microsoft showing they could innovate at the cutting edge of cloud technology. But Microsoft's real competitive strategy during this period was fascinating. While AWS was going broad with hundreds of services, Microsoft focused on 3 key areas: enterprise integration, hybrid solutions, and aggressive pricing. They leveraged their existing relationships with enterprise customers. If you were already using Office 365, Windows Server, or SQL Server, moving to Azure just made sense. Everything worked together seamlessly. The results spoke for themselves. By 2015, Azure had reached a $1 billion annual revenue run rate. By 2017, over 85% of Fortune 500 companies were using some form of Microsoft Cloud services. Microsoft wasn't just competing anymore. They were winning major enterprise customers. Between 2018 and 2020, Microsoft made some moves that would position them perfectly for what was coming, the AI revolution. In 2018, they launched Azure Cognitive Services, making artificial intelligence accessible to any developer. Suddenly, you could add vision recognition, speech processing, or language understanding to your applications with just a few lines of code. 2019 brought Azure Arc, which was Microsoft's solution for managing resources not just in Azure, but across multiple clouds and on-premises environments. They were essentially saying, we'll help you manage everything, everywhere. But then 2020 happened. The COVID-19 pandemic changed everything. Suddenly, every business needed cloud services, video conferencing, and remote work solutions. Microsoft Teams usage exploded, and with it, the entire Azure ecosystem. During this period, Microsoft also made a strategic acquisition that would prove crucial: GitHub. They bought the world's largest code repository for $7.5 billion in 2018. This gave them direct access to the global developer community. The AI integration during this period was remarkable. Azure Machine Learning became a comprehensive platform for building, training, and deploying AI models. The bot framework made it easy to create conversational AI. Everything was building towards something bigger. By the end of 2020, Azure had become the preferred platform for many enterprises, especially those already invested in the Microsoft ecosystem. The developer community was growing rapidly, and Azure was no longer seen as the alternative to AWS. It was seen as a leader in its own right. But the biggest transformation was still ahead. 2022 was the year that changed everything for Azure, and really for the entire tech industry. This is when Microsoft announced their strategic partnership with OpenAI, making Azure the exclusive cloud provider for all OpenAI services. Think about what this meant. When ChatGPT launched in November 2022 and broke the internet with 100 million users in just 2 months, all of that traffic was running on Azure infrastructure. Every ChatGPT conversation, every GPT-4 request, every AI image generation, all powered by Azure. Microsoft didn't just host OpenAI services. They integrated them directly into Azure through the Azure OpenAI service. This meant enterprise customers could access the same AI models that power ChatGPT, but with enterprise-grade security, compliance, and integration. In July 2023, Microsoft also rebranded Azure Active Directory to Microsoft Entra ID, reflecting their broader identity and access management vision. But here's what's really incredible about this period. The AI workload growth was massive. Businesses that had never considered advanced AI were suddenly building AI-powered applications. Developers who had never worked with machine learning were creating intelligent chatbots and automation systems. This partnership gave Microsoft a significant competitive advantage. While AWS and Google Cloud were scrambling to build their own AI services, Microsoft had exclusive access to the most advanced AI models in the world. The revenue impact was substantial. Azure's growth accelerated significantly, driven primarily by AI service adoption. Microsoft wasn't just participating in the AI revolution, they were leading it. So where does that bring us today in 2025? Microsoft Azure is now a cloud computing giant with some truly impressive statistics. Azure offers over 600 services across every category of cloud computing you can imagine, from basic virtual machines to quantum computing simulators. They operate in more than 60 global regions, which is more than any other cloud provider. That's more data centers in more locations than AWS, Google Cloud, or anyone else. Azure currently holds approximately 25% of the global cloud market, making them a solid second place behind AWS. But here's what's interesting: in many enterprise segments, especially those involving AI and hybrid cloud deployments, Azure is actually the preferred choice. They serve millions of customers across 190 countries. These aren't just small startups. These are Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, and massive global enterprises running their most critical workloads on Azure. Azure's key strengths today are clear: seamless integration with the broader Microsoft ecosystem, industry-leading hybrid and multi-cloud capabilities, AI and machine learning leadership through the OpenAI partnership, and comprehensive industry-specific solutions with enterprise-grade compliance. Recent developments include continued expansion of AI services, major sustainability initiatives with goals to be carbon negative, and enhanced security features that meet the most stringent government and enterprise requirements. From Project Red Dog to global AI leader, it's been quite a journey. Let's quickly recap this incredible journey. In 2008, Microsoft announced Project Red Dog, their late entry into cloud computing. In 2010, they launched Windows Azure as a Windows-focused platform. By 2012, they were supporting multiple platforms and virtual machines. The 2014 rebranding to Microsoft Azure marked their transformation into a true multi-platform provider. The period from 2018 to 2020 established them as an AI and modern cloud leader. And the 2022 OpenAI partnership positioned them at the forefront of the AI revolution we're experiencing today. Looking toward the future, Azure is investing heavily in several key areas. Quantum computing services are becoming more accessible to researchers and enterprises. Edge computing capabilities are expanding to bring cloud services closer to where data is generated. Sustainability remains a major focus, with Microsoft committed to being carbon negative by 2030. This isn't just marketing. They're investing billions in renewable energy and carbon removal technologies. Advanced AI and autonomous systems will continue to be a major differentiator. The integration with OpenAI is just the beginning. We can expect even more sophisticated AI capabilities integrated directly into Azure services. Industry-specific cloud solutions are another major trend. Instead of one-size-fits-all cloud computing, Azure is developing specialized solutions for healthcare, financial services, manufacturing, and government. The prediction for the market is continued growth, especially in enterprise AI adoption and hybrid cloud deployments. Azure is well-positioned to capitalize on both of these trends. And that's the complete history of Microsoft Azure, from underdog to industry leader in just 17 years. What I find most fascinating about this story is how Microsoft was willing to completely transform their approach. They went from Windows everything to customer choice everything. The Azure story teaches us that in technology, being first isn't always most important, being adaptable is. Microsoft was late to cloud computing, but they learned from their competitors, listened to their customers, and made bold strategic decisions that paid off. Today, whether you're a developer building the next great app, an enterprise running critical business systems, or a startup looking to scale globally, Azure provides the infrastructure and services to make it happen. What surprised you most about Azure's history? Did you know about Project Red Dog? Were you aware of how late Microsoft was to the cloud computing party? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Azure's history, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more technology history content. Ring that notification bell so you don't miss them. What cloud provider should I cover next? Drop your suggestions in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.